What I long for the most? Someone who remembers how I drink my coffee. The old man's voice was delicate, almost remorseful, as he sat in his usual corner stall at Rosie's diner. His hands trembled naively. Nowadays, it's more customary than to read. Mara Brennan, 28, stopped her coffee pot while waiting, and her familiar smile pierced through her. She had been a waitress for 6 years due to her mother having to pay for her college expenses, and she had learned to listen to what others were saying. "It's just sugar and no cream," she whispered softly, "and you fold the sports section first even though you've read the obituaries." Walter Finch looked up at her, his faded blue eyes suddenly brightened with tears. "You should be commended, mister." Since then, Walter had become an integral part of Mara's routine. Every morning at 7:15, he would walk through the door, his cardigan slightly larger and his shoes carefully polished. Despite his age, he never placed large orders. Toast, scrambled eggs, and coffee were always on his plate, but a $5 tip on an $8 check was always present. Myra learned about the weather in fragments, which is an unchanging phenomenon. Dorothy, his wife, had passed away 3 years ago, and his son had relocated to Seattle, where he was too occupied to make phone calls. His grandson was constantly checking his phone, making calls only once or twice a year. "I don't blame him," Walter told her one morning, with his voice ringing but still sounding hollow. "I'm just in the midst of things, waiting for the epilogue." Myra reached across the counter and held his weathered hand. "Perhaps you're opening up a new chapter." It could be that it hasn't been written yet. She took care of the little things first, saving the newspaper before other customers could spread it, and ensuring his booth was secluded during the morning rush. On his birthday, which he had mentioned only once, she served him a slice of apple pie with one candle. Walter had cried uncontrollably. "I'm the only one who remembered," he murmured. However, Myra also observed that Walter's hands trembled more frequently every week, and that it was possible for him to forget about having told her a story. He had started to walk with a cane at that time, his clothes were tighter, and his smile required more effort. However, on one Tuesday, he didn't appear. Myra felt like she was missing a heartbeat when she searched for his address on the phone book. She later visited the house, which was neat and organized, but too small for one person to fit in. In his pajamas, Walter answered the door with an embarrassed expression. "I fell," he said, "but I'm just tired." Mara came by after work and helped with groceries, prescriptions, and reading him the newspaper. Despite her manager's complaints about her shortened hours at the diner, Myra couldn't help but feel lonely. Walter had no one else around to comfort her, and it had been a long time since her father left. Her mother was ill and had consumed all of her energy. "Why do you feel this way?" he asked. "You don't owe me anything," Mara declared, wiping his tears from his cheek. "It's important for someone to be kind because kindness is not something we give at the convenience of others. It's a gift we give because we're all human." However, after 3 weeks, Myra was notified by the hospice nurse that her son had listed her as his emergency contact. She wept for 20 minutes straight in the diner's kitchen, knowing that the man had become a part of the family without their presence. The funeral was small, with Myra, the hospice nurse, and 3 neighbors who had little knowledge of him, yet another man in an expensive suit arrived as the service wrapped up. "I'm Marcus Finch," he announced. "Walter's grandson, where are you?" Myra snorted with anger and sadness. "You're staring at everyone." Myra's voice pierced as she waited for someone to recognize her son, resulting in his untimely death alone and a flush on his face. Without any other indication, Marcus left, and Myra believed it was the end of a solitary life. However, after 2 weeks, he reappeared at the diner accompanied by 2 legal representatives, leaving her heartbroken. She had heard tales of families fighting over estates, people showing up from nowhere to claim what they left behind. "Miss Brennan," a lawyer wrote, "we need to speak with you about Walter Finch's will. I don't want him to feel that way, but I just wanted someone to think about him." Marcus stepped forward, and she saw something strange in his eyes. "My grandfather left you the house, but that's not the reason we're here. He squirmed, swallowed deeply, and he also left me a letter. The attorney suggests that I read it in your presence." They were sitting in Walter's previous booth. The lawyer presented Marcus with a yellow envelope that he had carefully sealed, causing his hands to tremble with excitement. "I'm sorry you're busy. Life is tough and I was just an old man. However, I want to inform you that Mara Brennan is a waitress who earns $8 an hour plus tips. Every day, she provided me with everything I needed, including her time, attention, and heart. She even remembered my coffee. She remembered my birthday and saw me when I was invisible to everyone, including myself. I'm departing from her house because she gave me something that was more valuable than property. She provided me with dignity in my last moments. Marcus, take cues from her. If you're too preoccupied to care about others, it's pointless. If you can't remember how someone drinks coffee anymore, well, you owe it to yourself. Be better than I did. Be like Mara." His face was shattered and he looked down with tears in his eyes. "I was so focused on building my career and making him proud that I couldn't do anything about it. I neglected to be present for him." Myra leaned over the table, her eyes wide open. "He was aware of your love, Marcus. Just need to feel it more often." By whispering, Marcus instructed his customers to teach me how to interpret people in the way you saw him. Over the next few months, he began frequenting the diner, not for meetings or quick meals, but to learn about the customer's customs, preferences, and stories. He reduced his work hours and volunteered at the senior center that Walter had mentioned, but never attended. He was too self-assured to admit his loneliness, and Mara and Marcus developed a friendship. It wasn't love from pain, it was partnership and intention. They turned Walter's home into a community meeting place for lonely elders to meet and share stories and conversations. And it became the Walters Corner, where everyone was noticed, celebrated, and respected. 1 year after his death, Mara watched the grand opening, where hundreds of people had sat in the room unnoticed until someone came forward. Marcus approached her, holding her hand. "Do you think he knows?" Mara cried out. "He always knew that one act of kindness could change everything. He simply needed someone to prove it to him first." The woman, who was older than him, approached with a coffee cup and asked Myra's last question. She responded by saying, "I don't have any sugars or cream on my drink, but I'll have no regrets." Our purpose in life is not to be remembered by history, monuments, or wealth, but rather by our fellow travelers. We value each other in small ways and recognize that we are not alone. Moreover, there may be someone who remembers how we drink coffee. Kindly like, share, subscribe, and comment on this story.